We are talking about the ninth day of the war, and there's nobody better to explain to us what's really going on than Yaakov Katz, who's an Israeli-American author, journalist, senior fellow at the Jewish People's Policy Planning Institute in Jerusalem. He has served as editor-in-chief of the J Post, the Jerusalem Post, and worked for 2 years as policy advisor to Naftali Bennett, who was at the time, the Minister of Economy and Minister of Diaspora Affairs. Later, he was the Prime Minister as well. He's the author of 3 books: Shadow Strike, Inside Israel's Secret Mission to Eliminate Syrian Nuclear Power. I guess there's another chapter to that now. Weapon Wizards, How Israel Became a High-Tech Military Superpower, and Israel versus Iran, The Shadow War. Okay, you know what? The floor is yours. Before I even ask you the questions, give me a picture of what we've been seeing here in the last 9 days.
Well, I mean, put aside books for a moment. I think we need a whole new book written about... I've long believed, Yishai, and I wonder what you think, that we need a new addition to the Tanakh. Okay, who am I to propose something like that? But what the last 2.5 years for the Jewish people have been so tumultuous, so challenging, so dangerous and existential. But look at how we've emerged. I mean, it's really... it's epic. It's biblical in proportion. And the stories of the courage and the bravery and the sacrifice of Israeli people and Americans and just everything going on here. This creation of this new military alliance, a whole new level, something that had we spoken a few weeks ago, I could not have imagined that we would have this joint merged operation in the way that we're seeing playing out right now, where the Americans are refueling the Israelis and backwards and flying together and sharing intelligence, sitting in command rooms. And this is Israel's first war in English. They're talking in English all day because they're sitting across from Americans. They're looking over the maps and analyzing targets and deciding, you go there, I go there. Israel, the military has changed its time, right? They usually have their own clock system. They're going according to Zulu time, which is the NATO time, because they're working with the Americans. I mean, this is unbelievable. So I'll tell you a couple of things. I'm super optimistic. I really am, because I believe that we are on track to a dramatic change, not just in the region, not just for Israel, not just for the people of Iran, but for global security. I think that what we're seeing playing out, if this keeps up and the Americans keep at it and Donald Trump keeps going, this will be the change that our kids, who now don't understand what they're watching, will one day look back and say, wow, we were witnesses to history being written.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I have young children, and they are definitely feeling that they're living through something amazing. Though Jews are sometimes, less, the ones that are less involved in the news, and the ones that are more cynical. I was in synagogue and I was talking to a guy and I was saying basically what you just said. And he's like, yeah, but there's still this and there's this and these. He started poking holes and laying out all the problems. And I'm like, we just took out the leader of Iran, a nation state. This guy has been plotting to murder Israel for a long time. We just took him out, him and his 40 top dudes, in one shot. Yeah. I agree with you about the other problems, but hold on, take a stop and be like, and if you want to look at it religiously, thank God. And if you want to look at it religiously, you could be like, wow, that was on Shabbat Zachor. That's when we're supposed to talk about the destruction of Amalek. If you don't want to look at it religiously, just look at it just in your personal safety for you and your children. You just averted a nuclear Iran. You just averted a guy, who terrorized us all the way in Argentina in the Amiyah bombings and Hezbollah and the Houthis. This guy just left the world. We just took him out. We didn't leave him die. We didn't let him die peacefully. We took him out. Wow.
Think for a moment. I saw this tweet that Khamenei tweeted 3 days after October 7th in 2023, so it was October 10th. And he tweeted, Israel brought this upon themselves. Israel will never stand up again and will never be able to rise up. That was pretty much the language of his tweet. And you know what?
Wow.
Because he was such an evil guy, he tweeted it even in Hebrew to make sure that every Israeli would be able to read it. This is what he tweeted from his official account.
Right.
When he was killed 2 Saturdays ago, I wonder if he thinks now that we were the ones who would never rise up, that we were the ones who brought this upon ourselves? Or was it he who brought it upon himself when he unleashed his proxies to attack us. Hamas on October 7th, Hezbollah on October 10th, the Houthis, and of course Iran itself. And you look at the leadership in all of these different places. Hassan Nasrallah, dead. Yahya Sinwar, dead. Khamenei, dead. The leaders of the Houthis, dead. Right? We're still standing. We're still here. We're strong. And they are collapsing around. Now, does that mean we're in the safety zone that we can sit back and rest? No, we have major challenges, major risks, and we will have to fight for a long time ahead. But in the big scheme of things, this is so far playing out to be a huge, dramatic change in the region. And if all goes well and this continues, a huge victory for Israel, for the United States, and for the Western world.
All right. Let's ask a few questions now. First thing is, this Netanyahu is not the same Netanyahu that we knew previously. I could tell you that in the political circles that I was in, it was kind of well known. Netanyahu is not a warrior. He's not a fighter. He is a great economy guy, and he's a great politician, and he knows how to put powers against one another. But he's not a great fighter. He's not a war maker. That was the lingo. I remember sitting with Knesset members and ministers where they would say these kind of things. That's obviously changed. So what happened? This guy, I mean, at the same time, just to further my question, he's been talking about Iran for a long time. I'm talking 25 years, right? Like this is he's been waiting for this moment to
100%. And I'll say even more than that. Part of what led to the failed policies that brought us October 7th and the surprise Hamas attack was our hyper focus with the big mega strategic threats from Iran. And therefore we took our eye off the ball and we're not focused on the closer to Israel threats like Hamas. That was part of the puzzle here. The Netanyahu that we are seeing over the last 2 years or so, since October 7th, is a different Netanyahu. It's a Netanyahu who has thrown out the policy of containment that was his trademark, the policy to kick the can down the road, do everything possible to avoid war. And if you have to do an operation, it's standoff, it's electronic, it's covert, it's never boots on the ground, it's never going to be something that's in a big way. Netanyahu has changed. And I think it's a change which is a result of an understanding that the previous policies were wrong, an understanding that you can't just rely on the military and the intelligence establishment because of their own mistakes and failures. And we saw those play out very well, unfortunately, tragically, in the eve of October 7th. But also, I think that he recognizes this moment in history. And this you have to give Netanyahu. I have lots of criticism of Netanyahu. I'm not the biggest fan at all, to say the least. But this man is a leader of historic proportion. What he has done for the state of Israel over the last 2 years of this war is nothing less of remarkable. And we will have to judge him for his failures and for his successes. That is how this works in life in general. And that's fine. And there's nuance and complexity in that. I get it. He's not just perfect and he's not just a failure. He is a mix of them both. But this ability to bring Donald Trump into this, to have this merged, Yishai, let's just say it straight. We are today what the United Kingdom was to the United States in World War II. That's what we are now.
I just want you to know that the previous guest before Malka was Eugene Kantorovich, and he said that word for word, exactly what you're saying now. Like, we have taken the place of what England used to be. They're out of it.
I mean, it's so blatant because look at these. I hate this. Look at these losers in England right now. I mean, Keir Starmer. This is leadership. Do they not understand? And and sadly they don't. We know the answer. They do not understand the nature of the Iranian threat. I mean, it's as if I was speaking with a senior.
Well, just to remind you, the UAE does not send their young people to study in England
anymore. Correct,
lest they become too jihadi, because that's the education they're going to get in England.
I was speaking with a Democrat. I was speaking with the Democratic operative in the United States, very close to the Democratic Party. And it's just, I said, maybe I'm naive, right? But deep down, all these Democrats who are against the war, it's because it's Trump, right? It's not, they really, in their kishkas, they know that this is right. I mean, you can't. How do you, and he said, I hate to tell you, but there's a small group that knows it's right, and they're just voting against it and condemning it all day because it's Trump. But the vast majority really genuinely believes that this war is wrong. And it's a misunderstanding of basic history, of what Iran has done to America, of what Iran has done to the world. You mentioned the Amia attacks and the attacks that have been in Azerbaijan and in Turkey and in India and in Africa and all over the world. And the attacks that they carried out against American soldiers and assassination plots against the president of the United States. Mike Pompeo, still today Secretary of State, walking around with security guards because there's a death notice that a fatwa that was put out. Other members of the administration. This is not an enemy of America.
And then not to
America.
mention the killing of their own people.
Which, by the way,
which you would think all liberals, progressives would jump on board.
You would think, but you know what? Tragically, that goes out the window because when not only does sympathy go out the window, but also the brain goes out the window. You have thousands and thousands of people who have been killed, whether it's 30,000, it's 10,000, it's 7,000. Does it make a difference? There are people who took to the streets to fight for liberties that you and I, living in the state of Israel, and of course the people who live in America and in Europe, take for granted. They don't have them. That alone should be enough of a justification and a reason for people to want to go out and fight to free these people. Compound that with the fact that this regime, I got to say, there's just another thing that's coming to my mind as we're speaking. For years, Yishai, and you have really been one of the frontline warriors against this myth, right? But that we, Israel, is the source of all instability. It's the so-called occupation. It's our presence in the Middle East. We shouldn't be here. We should go back to Poland. And you've been preaching for years, ever since I've known you, 20 plus years. You've been preaching legitimately about our right to this land, our right to be here. But, if anyone still had doubts, and it's hard to believe that they would, but let's say some people still did, after the last 9 days that Iran is firing indiscriminately into the UAE, into Saudi Arabia, into Oman, into Iraq, into Jordan, into Kuwait, into Cyprus, into Azerbaijan, into Turkey, of course, into Israel. Do you really think that it's still Israel that's causing the instability in the Middle East? I mean, you have to be crazy to believe that.
You
right?
know how it is, though. You know how it is. When you have a certain prism, you'll just be like, oh, look, they're suffering and they're lashing out. They're lashing out at everything they could because they're so abused. You can always justify it. You could always justify it. I mean, I don't know how you justify the murder of at least 30,000 civilians in the streets asking for regime change. But as Judaism says, hasinah mekalkelet et hashura. Like it's when you hate Israel and when you hate Trump and you hate these things, it doesn't matter because you can't grant him a win. You can't grant Israel a win. You just can't stand it. Let's actually watch a video together of President Trump talking on Air Force One. I'd like to get your comments on this. Hold on just one second. Here it is.
Questions? President Trump, did what you just witnessed make you think differently about going ahead with this war or even putting troops on the ground in the Middle East?
We're winning the war by a lot. We've decimated their whole evil empire. It'll continue, I'm sure, for a little while. But very proud of the people, the parents. The parents were so proud of their boy, as they call him, my boy, in case the young lady. The parents are so proud. Many of them are military parents, as you know. So but it's always a very sad thing. The war itself is going unbelievably. It's as good as it can be. We have Pete here. Pete, and you have Steve Witkoff here. We have some additional questions.
You're 1 week in now, sir. You're 1 week in at this point. How long, as of now, do you expect?
Well, I think we've accomplished more in 1 week than anyone thought possible. We've wiped out their Navy, 44 ships. We've wiped out their Air Force, every plane. We've wiped out most of their missiles. You see the missiles aren't coming much anymore. We've also
Before we go on, I wanted to ask you about the naval warfare, because you're also a writer of the wars. You cover the wars and how they go, and I haven't heard much about the naval aspect of it. Right? There's a naval engagement going on. We heard about that one ship off of Sri Lanka that was torpedoed by a U.S. submarine. Other than that, now he says there's 44 ships that have gone down, that have been sunken or disabled. Can you tell me more about that? Do you know anything?
Yeah, Israel and the United States, when the operations began, divided up different categories of targets among which country or which military would take which targets. The U.S. was primarily focused on the south of Iran, which makes sense because that's near the straits, that's where the flow of oil, that's shipping lanes, and that's where the Navy is based, and also where the launchers would be closer to attack allies of the United States and regional bases. Israel, more focused on the Western Front, but ballistic missiles, drone capabilities, and the regime targets, both together taking out nuclear installations. The U.S. very focused on the Navy. They want to make sure that the Iranians cannot wreak havoc in the Straits of Hormuz, in the Arabian/Persian Gulf, cannot cause any trouble to the flow of oil or any other trade through the region. So they have systematically taken out and destroyed essentially the entire Iranian Navy. They destroyed about 30 or so vessels. Many of them were just parked inside a port. Some of them were out in the water, almost all destroyed by air or with ship-to-ship missiles. This one in Sri Lanka, it was in the Indian Ocean. They thought they were immune there. America sent a submarine and destroyed it with a torpedo. First time that a torpedo was used to sink a ship since World War II.
Wow.
It's dramatic, it's interesting. And you have to say to yourself, Yishai, they could have destroyed it other ways. They didn't have to do it that way. I look at it and I see a lot of the signaling and communicating that's coming out of America is very much aimed at China and Russia here. This is about flexing a muscle and showing the world, and particularly those two adversaries of the United States, what American military might is, what the projection of power looks like. And let's not forget something super important to this. Iran's military is an extension. It's based on Chinese and Russian military platforms. So if you look at what America and Israel are doing to Iran, now imagine you're in the Kremlin or you're in some PLA, People Liberation Army base in Beijing, and you're seeing what they can do to air defenses, to Air Force, to missile capabilities. You got to wonder what they could potentially one day do to you as well.
And you're thinking maybe we're going to just jump in and take over the Taiwan. We're just going to swallow it up. Then you're like, I'm thinking twice about that, right?
I think that's part of what the American consideration is. And if you look, and it's interesting because I've been reading a couple of Chinese analysts based in China, and they obviously have to toe the line of their own regime. But they are saying that we have to really study carefully what we're watching the Americans use here. And let's not forget something else. This is the first war for the United States against a conventional military in about 23 years since the invasion of Iraq. Now, that was very different, and this is obviously very different. And China would be a whole other scale than what we're seeing now. But this is a great opportunity to test out all these different capabilities that America has amassed over the years.
The George Bush carrier group is now steaming towards which ocean is it coming towards? Is it into the Gulf or is it into the Mediterranean?
It's supposed to be going to the Gulf, yeah.
Okay, that's a third carrier group in our region.
Yeah.
So,
and the question, does it replace another carrier? Does it come to add to the current carrier? We'll have to wait to see. It's going to take some time also for it to come. But look, the Iranians totally miscalculated here. Donald Trump built up this force, what he called the Great Armada, the most beautiful armada, over a period of weeks. And the fact that Khamenei was meeting in his compound above ground with all of his advisors and top officials on that Saturday morning, thinking nothing's going to happen to me, just goes to show the sheer miscalculation by the Iranians of
But
what Donald
how do you
Trump
make
would
that
do.
miscalculation? Just tell me that, because like I know, like analysts that I spoke to, they were like, I'm like, is there going to be a war? They're like, yeah, definitely. There's definitely going to be a war. That's why he's bringing all this metal, floating metal or flying metal, because there's going to be a strike. And how is it that you're sitting in Iran? You're like, nah, this guy's a bluff. He's bluffing it. And you're ready. You already got struck on in June. Is it because they thought, oh, see, he doesn't want to go all the way? You know, is that what they were thinking? How are they so blithe? Or what's the hubris that they had? Or was it not hubris, but some kind of death wish? I've read some stuff that they say that there's a cult within Shiite Islam, which is like end of the world type of ideology. Like we're just going to bring on to a general conflict, end of the world type thing. Well, that's also our role. Well, what were they thinking? You think?
I think listen, this is a death cult. This is an ideological doctrine that calls for war, jihad, and destruction, hates you and me because of our religion and our way of life, right? This was not a government that took over in 1979, 47 years ago, and just wanted to run the country. This isn't like the coups that we've seen in other authoritarian regimes. This was meant to spread their ideology through violent, oppressive means all throughout the region. And that's exactly what they have tried to do for the last 47 years. The fact of the matter is they call themselves still the revolution, right? This is still a revolution all these years later, because this is what this has always been about. Their miscalculation, I think, was just a total misread of who Donald Trump is, what he really wanted to do, and their belief that they could do what they have done forever with American presidents, right? They did this with Barack Obama. They did this with Joe Biden. They strung along George W. Bush. They have always been able to do this. And Donald Trump, and I don't know necessarily where it comes from. It's hard for me to answer that question. But I do think after watching him now, almost 6 years as president, this is a man who really gets one thing clear: the distinction between good and evil. And sometimes it is simple.
I think he's got one more thing.
Yeah.
I think he's got one more thing, Yaakov Katz. He has an innate sense of power projection. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I see that he's a man who does not stutter when media asks him a question. He doesn't get nervous when it's time to tweet something out. He doesn't get nervous about making mistakes. He doesn't get nervous about saying something that isn't perfect. He's used to that. And in a sense, he has a gut. Like maybe, other presidents would be like, is this okay to say? What should we say? Where's my advisors? What do you think? He just rolls it out. And I think that also that natural instinct of projection is also a place where you can naturally project war or strength. You're like, I want to make a deal with you. I'm really being honest with you. You don't want to deal? Well, I'm going to really strike you. And here it really is. It's a sense of, it's a person who's very naturally in his position and is not concerned with what this media person will say, what this person will say. He just has you know what I mean? What are they, it's a charisma that is just natural, a leadership, a projection of power that is natural. And there it is right there.
I think you're right. I think that's another piece to it, 100%. And it's about the understanding that where force is needed, he doesn't hesitate to use it, and how it's important. But we have to remember, Yishai, also though, is that military is politics by other means. This is not the end all. Right. Whatever comes of this, we have a number of different options of which way this could go.
And we have seen failures, right? We've seen failures at these moments.
Look, I mean,
right? Look at Iraq, right? Like it failed.
But I take closer to home. Look at what's happening in Gaza right now.
Right.
I mean, we're kind of not talking about it.
Yeah, it's quiet.
Hamas is in control of 50% of the Gaza Strip and has reconstituted itself and has tens of thousands of fighters with tens of thousands of weapons. I mean,
what the hell? What's that about?
I mean, that's a whole other conversation, right? But I mean,
but that's what it is. Is it a whole other conversation? Isn't it part of the same war? Like over there, you're crushing them to pieces, and over here, you're letting right next door in our, in what was once controlled by Israel, you're letting them.
No, because it comes down to, okay, you've done a lot, you've weakened. Now we got to quickly come up with some way to end this. And sometimes that quick way to end it, it's not cooked, it's not baked. And it's not strong enough to really prevent the reconstitution of the adversary and of the enemy. And that's something that we need to make sure does not happen here, right? Because here's my big fear, okay? My big fear is that whoever the new Ayatollah will be, whoever will be the supreme leader, this person will make one very fast conclusion. And that is, if I only had nuclear weapons, this never would have happened. And therefore, I need to race. I need to make a mad dash to get my hands on nuclear weapons. Now, remember, they have the 400 kilos that were enriched to over 60%, which is just a jump away from the 90% military grade. They're still far away from a weapon, but we don't know everything that's happening everywhere. And
Right.
therefore, if we don't destroy the 400 kilos or get our hands on the 400 kilos, this could be a very bad. This could end not in a good way. And so I think of that. I think of also how Donald Trump, what he talks about when he speaks of regime change, the gold standard for him to some extent is Venezuela. And what happened in Venezuela? He got rid of Maduro and installed the vice president. So in his mind, you get rid of Khamenei, you take Khamenei's son, potentially. I don't think so. That's not what he would want, but that could potentially happen. And he could say, okay, we're done. We call it a day. We're going to make a deal with them. We're going to sit and negotiate, and we're going to negotiate. In the meantime, is it really that much different? Is our safety and security now guaranteed forever? Of course not. We see the same in Gaza. So we do have to be very conscientious.
Well, you and I, you said, you hinted to it that you have criticism of Netanyahu. To me, the completion of the Gaza operation was botched. It was not the way it should have. It should not have been finished that way. There's no way that you should have left, and that was part of the war goals, to get rid of Hamas and to certainly disarm them minimally, and that didn't happen. And it's like, how could you have made that same mistake? How could you have put us basically in a position where we were more or less before October 7th, October 6th? And so it was a failure, it was a botch. One does not want to see this Iran operation botched. One wants to see Iran either have a new type of leadership, a new type of regime, or maybe be split up into its ethnic components, but this time properly. Like at the end of like World War I and World War II, where you sit down and you make new lines and you the powers get together and they think it through, and then they have big conferences, and then they figure it out what the lines should be. I mean, not to do what happened in Iraq, where it's like, let's just have democracy, and then the whole thing goes to pot and Iran takes over. Like this has to be done smartly now. If you're sending 3 carrier groups and you're destroying the IRGC and you're killing their leadership, you better come up with a plan to have a day after.
And that is super important. And I agree. And we don't yet know exactly how that's going to look, but that will be the make or break of what we're seeing right now, because everything that's been destroyed can be rebuilt. Every weapon that has been used can be bought again and developed or manufactured. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. And the best way for that is obviously regime change. But there's no guarantee. I think often about Bashar al-Assad, right? 2011 begins the Arab Spring. It took 13 years for that guy to go, right?
Right.
He held on tooth and nail. He got help from the Russians, and he got help from the Iranians, and he got help from Hezbollah, but he was able to hold on for some time. But it was the beginning of the end. It could be that this is also the beginning of the end, but it might be a process. It might take time for the Iranian people to rise up, to get their act together, to stand up to. I don't know exactly how this plays out. No one does at this point. And unless they surrender, which they're not going to do, because their whole objective is just to survive, in other words, the regime, then we might be in for a journey. And in this journey, we do have to make sure they don't have the opportunity to build it up again.
Yaakov Katz, just another. I have you for just another minute or two. You're an Israeli-American author and journalist, senior fellow at the Jewish People Policy. I'll never get this right. Jewish People Policy Institute in Jerusalem. You're the former. I remember you very well as the former editor of as the editor of the Jerusalem Post, and now you have worked on a lot of books, and you worked for Naftali Bennett. Let me ask you about two more little things for the last few minutes here. Number one, Turkey. Where are they at in this? It's been a little bit quiet. He mourned what's his name, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, And we're being asked, what is your X handle? If people can follow you, if you want to tell us that, or so people can
Yaakov
find
Katz,
you.
just my name. YAAKOVKATZ.
Yaakov Katz. There you go, with a Z at the end. Okay, so
Yes,
X,
with a
Z on X. Okay. What's with that guy Erdogan? Like, he's another big power player, and he negotiated the takeover, in some ways fomented the takeover of Syria by his people that are like him in his image. Where's he at in all this? So far, kind of quiet. I just wanted to get your take. Like, where's this outlier? Where's this like quiet?
Turkey was one of the first countries to condemn the U.S.-Israel operation. Erdogan came out very strong against it. They were a missile was fired towards Turkey, NATO, because they are a member of NATO. NATO defensive systems shot it down. But with that said, we've also seen a missile that landed, a drone, that struck into Azerbaijan, which is also in that same region. In general, the thing that has me concerned when it comes to Turkey is that if we look at the last 2 years, we've seen a decline in the Iranian axis, right? The Shia axis. This is Iran, including its ally of Syria, of course, Hezbollah. They are in decline. But in their place, we're seeing the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood axis. And this is Qatar and Turkey. And it should have us very concerned. Turkey is a very powerful country. I'm not the first to make this comparison. Many smarter people than I have done this. But Iran, and before the 79 revolution, was our great friend, our close ally, right? Turkey was once upon a time our great friend and our close ally. And look at where they have gone, and look at the extremism that is in that country today, and look at their military and their capabilities. We should be very wary of what is happening there and what it could potentially mean for security, not just of the state of Israel, but for security of Europe as well. And I think that that's something that the world is not giving enough attention to right now.
And that's why I'm asking exactly. There's like a sense that there's this like shark in the waters right to the north of us. And it's like sitting, looking and watching us and studying us as well. Okay. The last question that I have for you is, there are 2 elections coming up. 1, U.S. midterm elections, and 2 is Israeli elections. And whoever understands war knows that politics is a part of war, and that political thinking is a part of war. Tell me what meaning to say political survival, elections. I mean to say, I don't mean just like politics in general. I mean particular, as in I want to get reelected. Tell me how you see, and you worked for Naftali Bennett, who's also in the
Worked for him a
polls here in
long time
Israel.
ago.
Okay, but I'm saying he's in the polls right now. He's back. He has a voice right now. Tell me how you're seeing these 2 elections. America, there's a lot of people who are against this war. The Democrats and the left and the CNN, they're working overtime against this war, to make it more unpopular. And here in Israel, probably Netanyahu is riding high, probably. But there'll be efforts to discredit him and to say you led to this war and you did not see it coming. So how do you see these 2 elections, and how do you see them affecting the war process?
Look, in the United States, the midterms are going to be very telling, and it looks like the Republicans are going to lose the majority in the House and potentially also in the Senate. And I'm very concerned with the voices that I'm hearing, definitely on the Democratic side of the aisle when it comes to Israel. Gavin Newsom, comments that he's recently just made, who might be a front runner in the primaries for the presidential nomination come 2028, current governor of California. I mean, Israel is very toxic today in the United States, and we saw the
ouch. That's hurt me. That hurt me when you said it.
It hurts me too. But
that's a strong way that you said it. It's very true. Like, we've become toxic.
But Yishai,
Wow.
I can't sugarcoat it. I mean, look at
the
Gallup poll. Look at the Gallup poll that came out last week, right?
Yeah.
Just before the war. Gallup came out with a poll. They do a running poll asking regular Americans, who are you more sympathetic to, Israel or the Palestinians? For the first time, the numbers changed. There's a majority that is more sympathetic to the Palestinians than they are to the Israelis. And it's not about the Palestinians. It's about the Israelis, right? It's that we're losing ground, and we're losing them on both sides, on both extremes. In the MAGA movement extreme, look at Tucker Carlson and his ilk, and of course what's happening on the left. So what comes out of this midterms does have me concerned. what comes out of our election, we will decide who we want. And Israeli people will go to the ballots whether it's going to be in June or September or October. It has to be held by October, but the prime minister might move up the election. And they'll decide, and this will be a referendum to a large extent on Netanyahu, as the elections long have been. And Israelis will choose, do they want him or do they not want him? That's their right to do. What I hope and pray, though, is that we don't let the elections rip us apart like we've done in the past, right? We got to keep our eye on the ball here. There's too much at stake. We've learned over the last 2.5 years that when we rip ourselves apart, when we divide ourselves, our enemies will swoop in and take advantage of that. We can't let that happen again.
By their own admission. They literally said that. They're like,
and you know what?
We saw that society rip apart. And Khomeini was a big talker about that. He's like, look, they're falling apart. They're falling apart. And they attacked us.
We have to be careful. I think if we've learned anything, and I'll be honest, I didn't know.
Do you think we've learned that? Do you think so? Do you think that there's a movement towards more civility here in Israel?
No, unfortunately, not enough. But it's something I talk about, I write about, because I think that I've learned. I was not aware, and I was part of that. I was, I'm part of the problem. but I did not understand myself until October 7th how important unity, cohesion, social cohesion is for national security.
I just want to say that my mother says that the word is not cohesion and unity, it's civility. It's derech eretz. It doesn't even have. You don't even have to be so united. You just have to be kind, decent, dialogue-y. It's not even like I'm. I love you. It's like I have a civil discourse with you, and that's very important. So that's certainly a part of the challenge that we have here in Israel. And it's not like so many people talk about that. You talk about that, and maybe that's also your American side as well. But it's not like Israelis are always talking about how do we get back to a more civil discourse.
I admit, culturally, I must be different. But I think people understand that, and look, you and I don't agree on everything, right? Your ideology different than mine. Your belief in certain things different than mine, but we sit here, we could have a conversation, right? We could do that with people who are very different, and that's about understanding that in the big scheme of things, we do want similar objectives. We want to be able to live here with our family. We want to be able to raise kids that will be safe and secure. Right. We want to be able to, I tell my kids, when we today, thank God, I think we only had one siren. Yesterday on Shabbat, we had 2 or 3. We go down to the bomb shelter. It becomes like, again, we got to go down to the bomb shelter. It's annoying already. Why do I have to do it? And I say, guys, listen, those missiles that you're hearing, those booms, they're coming to kill us. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. We need to recognize where we are and what this is. They are out to destroy who we are in our way of life. They don't want us here. And that does something to you. I think if we recognize that, I recognize it, you recognize it. Most Israelis recognize that. That puts us in a different boat, in a different type of reality, and we have to stand together, because this isn't some, worst comes to worst, we pay a little more in taxes. No. Worst comes to worst, we're gone. That's what's real.
And Israel is at the same time, I showed a video of people getting married in a bomb shelter. There is a sense of vibrancy. There is a sense of life. I have a coffee place downstairs from me. The police came and tried to shut it down, and they said, it's only for businesses the only businesses that are allowed to be open are what do we call that in English?
Chiyuni, or integral, critical.
Integral, right? And he's like, I'm making coffee here. People can't live without it. And the police was like, okay. The police were like, you're right. And so
hey, coffee is existential for me.
Right, exactly. He's like, people need it. Without it, it's not going to keep going. The police is like, you're right. So that's exactly the Jewish nation continues to live. I agree with you that there's a need for more civility. And speaking with you is an exercise in hearing a person of great civil discourse. And I really want to thank you very much for coming on the show today. And I agree with you. This war still has a lot of surprises for us. We still have to pray. We still have to be offensive and defensive, and we have to find more unity, and also unity with our region. Our region's got to come to a more consciousness of unity. Our region's got to drop some of the hate that has been the hallmark of this region. You got to let it go, guys. Like, Israel's part of the deal. It's your cousin. We're here to defend you as well. We're here to be the liberation nation as well. And you're seeing Iranians like singing the praises of Netanyahu in Israel. You're seeing the Druze do that. You're seeing the Kurds do that. Now it's time to see more normative Arabs also start to talk that way, and to see Israel as a normative part, at least a civil part of this region. That will help for trade. That will help tourism. That will help normalization. That will help health and roads and businesses. So much can be done here with the help of God. So let's hope that this great moment indeed turns out to be great at the end.
A pleasure to be with you, Yishai, as always.
Yaakov Katz, you got to follow him. Yaakov, can we please put up his Twitter handle there? I would appreciate that. Is an Israeli-American author, journalist, senior fellow at the Jewish People Policy Institute in Jerusalem. Used to be at the J Post as the editor-in-chief there. Worked for Naftali Bennett as a assistant to what's the word I'm looking for here? As a advisor to the minister, who later became a prime minister. And he's written many books, all of which need now a new chapter, and that means that he's got more work to do. Yaakov Katz, thanks so much for being with us.
Take care.
All right, folks. An excellent opportunity to speak with a great analyst and a great understander of what's going on in this world.